afternoon. Welcome. I'm Matt Shea. I'm the President and CEO of the National Retail Federation, and it is my great honor to welcome you all here today for Fight Retail Crime Day. As you can see, we've got enormous support both from our members and from a terrific group of bipartisan members of the Senate and the House. And we are honored to have a number of them with us today, and they're going to have a chance to share some remarks and answer a few questions if we have time for that. We've got more than 30 retail brands here today, flanking this bipartisan group that's sponsoring the legislation for us. And we are thinking of today as a day of action on Capitol Hill. And at the conclusion of this press conference, our members will go across the street to Senate and House offices and into the Capitol building and talk to members about the importance of the Combating Organized Retail Crime Act. And we are especially honored, as I said, to have some of those sponsors of the bill with us today to make some remarks and answer questions. Senators Grassley and Cortez Masto, Representative Dave Joyce, Dina Titus, and Susie Lee, and there are other sponsors here as well. So we'll let them make some comments in just a minute. Just to set the stage a little bit, I think many of you that have been covering this issue know and have seen, some of you maybe firsthand have witnessed the dramatic increase in retail crime. As of 2022, the studies that we've conducted with our partners measure retail crime, organized retail crime, shrink, theft losses in stores and across the retail ecosystem at more than $112 billion. That's a 20% increase from 2021. And a dramatic escalation just in the past several years, most troublingly, I think, of violence and aggression that's taking place and that's impacting customers, communities, store associates, and all of us as everyday citizens. And I think the thing that's most frightening in some ways and requires a real solution here is the violence and the incidents. And for years, when we talked about organized retail crime, people would say, well, that's 10 billion or 20 billion or 50 billion. Those are big numbers, but these are big companies, and these companies can handle it. And the truth is, this isn't only big companies. It's companies large and small. It's Main Street merchants and retailers in small towns across the country. And it's not only about the dollars involved here. It is about, in some cases, the tragic loss of life, the violence, the aggression that's playing out in these retail locations. And retailers, for their part, and I think we've all experienced this as customers as well, have done everything they can to make their stores and their places of business safe. They've added additional security measures. They've protected the goods that are in those stores. They've trained personnel to deal with these situations. And in spite of all that, we still need additional help and additional support. And that's what the Combating Organized Retail Crime Act will provide us. Now, last year, Congress passed bipartisan legislation, the INFORM Act, which begins to address how these goods are resold. These goods obviously have no value if they can't be resold, and we've seen over the last decade migration of sales of these goods to online platforms and marketplaces. And the INFORM Act begins to ensure that we can validate, verify the source of those goods, their provenance, the sellers, the identity of those sellers. So we're beginning to address that piece of the way these goods get moved across our economy. But now we've got to do the other piece, which is to prevent what occurs when these goods are stolen to begin with. And the Combating Organized Retail Crime Act will give resources to federal, state, local law enforcement agencies, the Department of Homeland Security, and other federal law enforcement agencies to coordinate across states, across law enforcement agencies. We've got some law enforcement, former law enforcement officers here, including some sponsors. And so they know firsthand the importance of information sharing. And then we'll ensure that we can direct the resources to places where these crimes are taking place and where these challenges are most acute. So I want to thank, again, all of our sponsors before I turn it over to Senator Grassley, and especially thank Senator Grassley, who's hosted roundtables with retailers in his home state of Iowa and is talking to these people on the ground to get firsthand information and experiences about how this is impacting them in the community. And thank all our co-sponsors and all of you for being here today. And I'll turn it over to Senator Grassley. Okay. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you. Thank you to the Retail Federation. Thank you to my colleague, Cortez Mastos. And thanks to all of our House colleagues, and then for the people that are here from all over the country to help this process along from the grassroots of America. Thank you all for coming. Reference was made to what I've done in my state. You find out when you dig into this, it's more than just the original crime of this stealing. It involves the fencing. It involves the money laundering. Some of that money gets to China. Some of the money purchases fentanyl in China. It comes back to the cartels in Mexico, and then again to enrich them and to bring the horrendous crime that comes with the selling of illegal drugs that kill so many thousands of Americans. This is something that for the state of Iowa is a $1 billion problem, but you also have to recognize not just the theft, but the danger to the employees, the cost to the consumers, and then the impact upon the individual retailers. This is a problem that you've even seen clips of it on television. You know how fast these robberies can take place. You know what happens to people that try to step in the way. You know that people have died. This is a problem that we have to deal with, and it has to be dealt with in a comprehensive way, and that's what our legislation is all about. And I thank all of the people that are helping us to get it passed, but particularly the retailers that have brought this problem. But the showing of this going on, what your clips in the video that you have in the stores and what that shows is more than we can say as members of Congress about how drastic this situation is, this problem that we hope this legislation will help accomplish. Go ahead.
Thank you. Good morning. I too want to thank our National Retail Federation and President and CEO Matthew Shea, all the incredible men and women who work across this country in our communities, really providing jobs and opportunities for so many people. I have to say, if you don't know somebody, have a family member or friend hasn't experienced this, then you're lucky. Because I'm telling you, it's happening in every community. I cannot walk out into my community, into a retail establishment without hearing from somebody, whether it's a friend or family or somebody that works there that has experienced this. It is a crime. And people are taking advantage of the retail establishments. And that's why it is important we pass this legislation. This creates a new crime, organized retail crime. It gives law enforcement the tools that they need to go after this organized criminal activity. That's what it is. It's not a one-off. It's not one person. It's organized crime, and it's at its worst. And so working together, it is important that we pass this legislation. I, too, along with my colleagues, you will see Dina Titus, Congresswoman Dina Titus here, Congresswoman Susie Lee. I thank them for their partnership on the House side, but we also had a roundtable discussion in our state on this very conversation, and we had law enforcement at the table, both at the federal and the state and the local. That's what it takes. That's how serious this is. So I am pleased to be able to work with my colleagues. I'm just asking, as we all get out there and engage and talk with members across Capitol Hill, we talk about the importance of passing this Combating Organized Retail Crime Act. It's essential. It's essential for our retailers. It's essential for the employees and our community members as well. So thank you for joining us this morning.
Well, thank you, Catherine, and thank you also to the Retail Association, the Federation, for having this morning, and for all of you to come out and help us get the message across of how important it is to pass this legislation. Working in a bipartisan way on the House, we've got a lot of work to do, but I think we can get it done. You've heard how this is not just the one-off shoplifter. This is a major organized effort. I came across it personally. I was in a Walgreens, and about as far as from me to you, a person came up with a backpack and just started scraping eyelashes into the backpack and walked out. I said to the sales lady, "Did you see what that guy just did?" She said, "Yeah, he comes in here 2 or 3 times a week, and we can't do anything about it because management is afraid somebody might get hurt." Well, that just speaks volumes. Now, in some of the big box stores, they're taking power tools. Eyelashes aren't power tools, but it leads to the same problem. You have an increase in prices. The retail store is hurt. The help might be put in harm's way, and the customer is also inconvenienced, because how many of you have gone into the store now where you have to get something behind a locked door and you have to call somebody to come over and unlock it for you? This whole system of organized retail crime has cost the state of Nevada in the last year over $80 million. And it's not just the big box, it's the small stores too. It's the mom and pop stores who don't have a big margin that they operate on, and so it really does hurt them. If we can get this passed, we can go after those who steal the eyelashes, those they sell them to, those who are engaged in human trafficking, as well as drug trafficking, as you heard from the senator. So I'm pleased to have introduced this. I appreciate very much our bipartisan support, and I thank all the people who are on the front lines confronting this every single day. So thank you for being here.
Thank you for the opportunity to be here with my bipartisan delegation, a bicameral delegation, to support this. Back in my prior life, I was a prosecutor, and I got to see it firsthand. And I can tell you, it's got to be 20 years now, but it started off slowly. Someone would come into the store, like a Babies R Us, take a stroller out of one, put in 4 breast pumps into that box, pay for the stroller, and leave. And when we arrested him, he had, on eBay, he had customers that he was doing. So in 20 years, this has only gotten worse. It's gotten more violent, because now they don't even bother to go through the charade of putting it in another box and paying for it. They're stealing it right off the shelf and have active lists in which they're filling as though they were out shopping for the day. They view all these retail establishments as their Amazon, where they're going to go pick what they want and steal it and put it into the black market. We've got to stop it. We've got to stop it today. That's why with my bill as the chair of the Homeland Security Appropriations Chair, we've put into our bill language that'll help coordinate this at the federal level, because it's a lot for any local or state organization to do on their own. But a coordinated effort nationwide will be able to finally give the relief to some of these retailers that they deserve. And with that, I'd like to introduce my friend, a fellow winner of yesterday's People Choice Beer Awards, Susie Lee.
Good to see you. Well, thank you all for being here, and it's an honor to be here with all of our colleagues, both from the Senate and the House. And it shows that in this time of divided politics, that organized retail crime does not discern whether it's red or blue. It affects each and every one of us in states across this country. And it's bad for everyone. It's bad for business. It drives up the costs of retailers by millions of dollars. When you factor in lost products, insurance, and increased price of goods. And it's a pain felt by businesses of all kinds. Most especially a small Summerlin, Nevada beauty supply store was just hit in May, hit pretty hard by organized retail crime. It's bad, obviously, for consumers, driving up the cost of goods. And as Congresswoman Titus said, it's bad for taxpayers. In Nevada alone, we saw an $80 million in tax revenue loss just in 2022. And most importantly, it's bad for public safety, it's bad for employees, and obviously our national security. We're seeing transnational criminal organizations funnel some $70 billion of illicit proceeds annually back into their criminal operations. Police departments across Nevada and the country are working hard to combat organized retail crime. The Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department has even established its own organized retail crime unit. But the scale of this problem is way too big for individual police departments alone, and that's why I'm grateful to be here today with my colleagues of both chambers, of both parties. Together we can turn the tide of this mounting toll that organized retail crime is taking on our communities, on our businesses, on the employees, and on our public safety. And together with the passing the Combating Organized Retail Crime Act, equipping retailers, financial institutions, and law enforcement with the full support they need to stop this crime and deliver the much needed relief for businesses and consumers all across Nevada and this country. Thank you, and I will now turn it over to Ruben Gallego of Arizona.
Thank you, and thank you again to my colleagues and our retailers here. I actually wrote the DOJ 2 years ago asking for them to actually look at potential RICO cases to look at this organized retail theft. And yes, this does cause security problems. It does hurt our local employees and our local employers, but it also actually hurts the customers. Many parts of this country right now are going to go through food deserts because some of our retailers are shutting down because they cannot financially make the numbers work. And you're going to see places that are no longer going to have the grocery stores that they need or other types of goods that are generally sold. And so for us that represent some of the poor areas of the country, this is something that's going to be extremely important for a lot of our citizens. Something that we always try to do. We try to bring in more diversity, more access to good food, and retail theft will absolutely put that behind. So I'm very happy to jump on this. Arizona needs this, the country needs this, and thank you for allowing me to be here. Now I'd like to introduce Congressman Ivey from Maryland.
Good morning. I used to be a prosecutor here in Washington, D.C., and after that I was the state's attorney in Prince George's County, which is the eastern border of Washington here. This has been a problem for decades. The challenge, though, is it's been growing, and as you've heard a moment ago, not only is it more widespread, it's better coordinated, and it's become more violent. So I think it's important to make sure that we get an increased level of federal involvement. Even when I was state's attorney here, people would try and use the jurisdictional lines against us. They would steal something in Maryland and try and take it into Virginia or D.C., knowing that law enforcement might get caught up by the jurisdictional change. Having federal involvement and coverage of that helps to make sure that that we don't get lost based on state jurisdictional lines. And in addition, I think this bill helps with, because a lot of the local jurisdiction, Justice Department offices have thresholds. You got to cross that threshold before it gets approached or prosecuted by that office. This is going to help to make sure that they aggregate those amounts and see the challenge and the impact across the state lines. I think it's critical for us. We've already got stores in my district that aren't restocking shelves. They don't bring the merchandise out and put it on the shelves anymore. That's true in the district here and in Prince George's County. These stores are about to go under, and as you just heard a moment ago, there's some food desert issues that are cropping up in jurisdictions that fought for years to try and get grocery stores, for example, in their districts. Finally got them, but now they're about to go under potentially because of this. So this legislation is critical, and I'm glad that we've got it coming. I'm happy to support it, and I'd like to... Oh, okay. Well, I think I'll stop there then and turn it back over.
Thank you. Thank you, Congressman Ivey. Thank you to all of our co-sponsors, Senator Grassley and Senator Cortez Masto. I would like to open up for a couple of questions. I know Senator Grassley's got some other commitments, as do these other members. So someone's got a question they'd like to ask. Courtney Reagan, CNBC.
Yeah. Senator Grassley, I guess I would like to ask the discussion about the felony thresholds and the difference.
Start over again, please.
Sure. The discussion about the felony thresholds and the differences based on different areas of the country seem to be a big issue. A reason why it's worse in some areas than others. Can you explain how this will change it, the aggregate $5,000, and how that potentially could make a difference?
Well, we want it's just simply uniformity, so that we have equal application of the law wherever the crime's committed. And it brings the full force of the federal government behind it, and that's what we need to have, the coordinated effort that we have. And once you have prosecuted people, you ought to have the same crimes applied, whether or the same penalties applied, whether it happens in California or in Iowa.
Anyone else have a question for one of the sponsors or another question on the? Courtney might.
I'll take another one.
Of course.
It was mentioned about the Inform Act, which I know sort of tackles this in a different way with the reselling of products. I don't know if anyone is able to share any real examples of how the Inform Act has helped in this area. We really haven't heard much about this.
Yeah, so the Inform Act was the legislation passed by the Congress last year, bipartisan, bicameral, that created a set of standards and a straightforward approach to the way in which marketplaces would put certain goods on those marketplaces for resale online. As we mentioned earlier, there's got to be a place for these goods to be resold. So the idea was to ensure that when those goods go onto those marketplaces, there's transparency about the source of the goods, the identity of the seller, certain dollar thresholds, and certain number of transactions that required additional levels of disclosure. That was passed last year. It only took effect in late July, so we don't have quite enough data yet to see how that's going to play out. But I think in conversations with the marketplaces, I think we know they're already beginning to make changes to the way in which they validate and verify the source of the goods and the sellers. But I think it's going to take a little time for the act to actually have full application and get data about how it impacts the sales. But thank you. Obviously that's a big piece of this as well. Any other questions? I know the House is actually working. No, congratulations.
We didn't rush into it.
No. Well, I noticed Dave. Did Joyce get out of here? He left. He had a solution, but they got another one. So, some of you got another one. So I want to thank all of you for being here today. Some of us will still be around. I know, as I said, our members standing here flanking the co-sponsors are headed to the Hill. I know some of them will be willing to answer questions or continue the conversation. So thank you all. And thanks especially to our co-sponsors and those that shared their comments this morning. Thank you all very much for being here. Thanks, everyone.